Hey everyone! All right, all right. Welcome back to another lovely, wonderful experience of Wives Wind Down. I am your host, Shonda Brown White. Yes, so thank you for joining tonight. Hey ladies. Hey Ebony. Thanks for joining. And Kim Law. Hope I'm getting y'all's names and avatars right. But welcome to Wives Wind Down. If it's your first time joining, welcome to this wonderful experience, this fun night. And if you are returning again, thank you, thank you, thank you. You all have really shown up for me and you have shown up for this platform. I am so excited about tonight and I'm so excited about our special guest. I see you, Nkoyo. Yes, I'm going to join you in a few moments. And I can't wait. I know she's going to drop some major gems and just share a lot about her experiences. And she's a boss mom and a boss wife. Okay. Hey Michi, I see you. So, but yes, if you are new to Wives Wind Down, thank you so much for joining. I created this atmosphere and this platform because I remember when I first got married, and even a few years after that, I was kind of like, new to the marriage thing. I didn't really know, like, what does it mean to be a wife and what do I do? It's like, I got the man, I got the husband, like, what do I do after that? And so I felt like there wasn't really a platform or anything to kind of help me to understand like how to be a wife. And so I wanted to create a platform where we could just come, let our hair down, have a good night, drink a little wine or juice or water if wine is not your cup of tea or whatever other drink you might want. But I wanted to create this atmosphere and this platform for that. And you all have shown up. I mean, more than thousands of you all have been tuning in each and every week. And I'm so appreciative. I'm so appreciative for the support and for the way you all have been sharing and telling a friend. Tell your friends to hop on over and come join us. And make sure in the comments, put a 1 if you're single and a 2 if you're married. Welcome. I see you. Let's see. I am Daphne and Brooke. Hey, Brooke. And I see a Leon. And so, it's fine if we have guys, if you want to join in and get on the conversation. And we have Lexi. Yes, because this is a girls' night. So you grab your girlfriends, tell a friend. Whether you're married or not, it doesn't matter. We're here to have good old girl talk and just keep it real about like marriage. And like, especially if you've ever wondered, like, what's marriage really about? I have been married for going on 12 years in September. Yay. And so shout out to my husband because there would be no Wives Wind Down if I wasn't married, if I didn't have a husband. Hey, Book Cheek Monica, I see you. And the fiber pandemic, hey girl, hey. Thank y'all. And I see y'all 1s and 2s for those who are new to Wives Wind Down. Welcome. 1, drop a 1 in the comments if you're single. 2, if you're married. And also, as through the night, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. So if you have questions or if you have comments, and then at the end, we'll have rapid fire, which is always fun. So I definitely want to see your comments and interact with us because this is what girl time is all about. So cheers. So without further ado, let me bring on our wonderful special guest. I'm so excited. All right, go. And I'm so excited to see each and every one of you beautiful ladies. I wish I could see your faces. Hey, Simply Sweet Nene. Hey girl,
hey. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this.
I'm so excited. And why do we have similar shirts? It's a different color, but it's the same shirt. I love
Hilarious. It. Great minds.
Yes, skin is just glowing, honey. Welcome to Wives Wind Down.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let me get right into it. So for those of you all who may not know, let me introduce my wonderful special guest for tonight. Nkoyo is a mother, a wife, and a Proverbs 31 woman in training. Okay, girl. She runs an education. Hear me when I say she runs, not she works in an education law firm. She runs an education law firm that advocates unapologetically for excellence, equity, and education justice alongside communities of color. A forever educator and lifelong learner, Nkoyo equips caregivers and change agents with the legal knowledge and tools they need to build a more inclusive education ecosystem. One of the most educated, driven, and beautiful women I personally know. So everyone, please drop a hand clap in the chat and welcome her. And she's so beautiful. Look at.
Oh, stop. I'm trying to catch up to you, Shada. I'm trying to catch up to you, girl.
Girl, goodbye. So let's get right into it. First of all, I just want to ask, how have you been doing amidst the quarantine and COVID and everything?
Man, I mean, it's been something, but I'll tell you, like I said, I'm a Proverbs 31 woman in training. So God has been good to me because my parents actually relocated to Georgia right before the pandemic. And so they've been stuck with me. So I have had an amazing hand from my parents. My mom is amazing. It's amazing to watch her be a mother, a wife, etc., while I'm growing in that as well. And then, you know, my husband always from day one has been holding it down. So we are trucking along. He's in healthcare. So, you know, I have every other day, I'm like, is he going to catch the COVID? But we are, you know, we're in God's hands. So we are doing well. And thank you for asking. How are you doing? How's this?
Yes. Listen, I'm great, especially now that I have you all and coming each week for Wives Wind Down and all my guests coming in. I see y'all come in, Lisa and Destin for greatness. I love that. Like, I am here for, and I see a lot of attorneys coming in here. I'm like, yes, bring your attorney friends. Yes. Miss 𝗪𝗶𝗲𝘂𝘁, yes. And hey, Jackie. So I'm really blessed. I'm thankful. I'm grateful and just giving myself grace during this time. So I'm good, especially because I'm here with you. Yes. Speaking of your husband, early on when quarantine first started, you made a post about your husband. You all have been married for like 3 years, but I know you've been together for a longer time than that we could talk about. But you mentioned you are forever the most obnoxious person I know and the one person I would hate to live without. So what have you two enjoyed most about this season so far? And I totally could relate to that.
You know, it's funny because we're having a lot of fun. You know, I've seen posts where people are like, oh my gosh, like, who is this person? And I feel like that has been my experience every day with this man. Like, who are you? Like, how are we together moving on this path? But we've had a lot of fun just trying to be creative about finding time for ourselves. You know, we have actually both taken up walking a lot, and we're both competitive. So what's funny about it is, like, when we go out to walk, it's like he's taller than me. He's like a full foot taller than me. So his pace and his stride is much longer and faster than mine. So it takes me a lot of effort to keep up. But he'll be like, keep up, you know. So, but I'm competitive. So we have ourselves a good time out there. But we've been he's a nature guy. So we've been exploring outside a lot together, going out on trails, finding, you know, creating date trips to the mailbox or to the bank. You know, it's like, oh, boo, let's go on this date night. Like, we ride into the grocery store. So we've just been trying to find joy in the small things. We also have an 18-month-old together. And so it's been amazing to just sort of watch this small person take on a whole life and mood of his own. And it's so funny because there are places where I'm like, you are your daddy's son. Like that. You are his. So
yes.
That's where we've been in quarantine. I feel like it brought us together.
Yes, and I love that. And how long have you two been married? Where did you all meet?
Yeah, so we met here in Atlanta. We actually, at the time, were living at the same apartment complex, the Villages at Lake Park, over there in Smyrna, across from the clock tower. And I was studying for the LSAT. He was working out at the gym. We had an athletic center, so I was in there trying to get my study on. And he was, you know, interrupting. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. You were studying in the athletic center.
So there was a cafe.
Okay.
I really wasn't on my, you know, because I had spent some good time when I first moved to Atlanta. My first 2 years, I spent a lot of time enjoying Atlanta. This has been the most diverse place that I have ever lived. So I spent a good amount of time enjoying, but I was focused on my business. They had a little cafe there. So I was in there studying, and we just happened to meet in the foyer, crossing paths, and the rest is history. I don't know how you got my phone number, but like the rest is history.
Yes, I love it. And hey to everyone just coming in. We see y'all. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for joining. Yes. One thing I found very interesting, obviously you're Nigerian and your husband is Jamaican. Well, Nigerian American, he's Jamaican. Were there any marital traditions that you feel like you had to unlearn or change based on like what works for you in your marriage? Because I know traditions are really like, I can't wait to take my DNA test because I'm like, I already know where my blood comes from. You know what I'm saying? But like I know that there, and I know there's like a lot of traditions that go along with that and
Mhm.
customs and stuff. So, but did you find that once you got married, you had to kind of modify some of that, or feel like, oh, it's not going to work?
Yes, I feel like we both have been very open-minded. I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to him in the first place. It's funny because the fact that I was Nigerian and that he was Jamaican came up in our first interaction because we met actually in 2008 when Usain Bolt like blew up the world. And so of course he was like, "Oh, I'm from the same parish as Usain Bolt," and I was like, "This dude is so corny." Like, who is he? And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm Nigerian." So he was like, "Oh,
Right.
you know." So I feel like a lot of our relationship has been navigating our cultures and like creating things that are similar. So we really try to focus on the things that are similar. Even our wedding, we did it as like a culture clash. So I'm Effiong, so we had an Effiong wedding. We did a traditional wedding. He was willing to, don all the garb and go through that process too. We made sure that we had both Nigerian music and Jamaican music, Nigerian food, and Jamaican food. And so I feel like a lot of our relationship is trying to find where things are similar and in common. And that's where we really lean a lot. Like, I think we both also know that we're not necessarily the traditional spouse. So I'll tell
Right.
you, my husband is an amazing cook. And it's
Yeah.
great because I don't really do much in the kitchen. So
Yes.
and I feel like we've just been, trying to figure out. I think that's a part people don't talk about a lot too with like marriage. It's like figuring out what works for you, because what works for your friends or your parents may not work in your marriage, and like being okay designing a marriage that works for you.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why I created this platform, because so many people can get caught up in the traditions or what they saw their moms did or their parents did or what they didn't see. And they
Mhm.
forget, like, at the end of the day, you have to create your marriage and do what works for you. And so I want women, when they come to this platform, to see different women from different backgrounds with different types of marriages so they can understand, like, oh, that works for them and that may work for me or it may not work for me, but it's working for them. So I love that you mentioned that. Um, there was something that I came across on your Instagram. I really wanted to read the entire quote because I just thought it was so beautifully said. For those of you all who don't know, Nkoyo is a mother and a stepmother. And you were a stepmother before you were a mom. And so I wanted to share this quote that I found, and then we can kind of unpack it.
Yeah.
But I trimmed it down because I just thought when I read it, I was like, wow, I feel like this really speaks to the heart of probably a lot of women out there who have blended families or who are stepmother or a bonus mom, as some people like to call it. But I read you, and I cut up some of it just for the sake of brevity.
Yeah, yeah,
But you said, before I was a mother, I was a stepmother. What an introduction to the contours of mothering. The edges are pointy and the gray scarce. We define stepmothers as villains because that is easy. But the reality is far more complex. It's a weird space to hold when you are mothering, but not the mother. Today, I am both a mom and a stepmom. Over the last 10 years, I have not been perfect. My heart has always been in the right place, even when my execution was less than ideal. And for that, I'm showing myself grace and gratitude today.
yeah.
And that was just a snippet, okay? Just a snippet. Um, so I wanted to ask, like, for you to get to that point, and I know it's been a journey. I'm sure there were peaks and valleys and a roller coaster of all types of emotions, but what did the self-work look like for you throughout the journey? And like, what kind of helped you the most? Was it because you had a support group? Was it just because of introspective, like just looking within yourself? Was it therapy possibly? Like, what do you feel like helped you the most? And like, what was that journey like? Someone said that was powerful, and they said, yes, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, and I'll say it's an ongoing journey. Even today, I was like, "Ooh, this distance learning, we're all here." I got a rising teenager, so they already think that they know everything, and I'm I don't want to say the supplement, but like I see it even with my son that I gave birth to. It's like, it's like, oh, it's mom, like that's mom. You have an affinity to your mom, and so it's always figuring out how to straddle a role where you want to give honor and space to that child's mother, because like that is his mother at the end of the day, whether regardless of my feelings about her or any of those things, like that's his mom. And I would want, as somebody's mom, also for people to respect that position, right? So to always figure out ways to be honoring of her while also asserting myself as a person of influence in that space. So it's a lot. It has been a lot of self-work, a lot of, you know, they talk about like dying unto yourself, like letting go of ego, like trying to swallow back pride, like figuring out ways in which, you know, you exert yourself, you create structure and support in that space, while also figuring out like what are the lines, you know, like what's the things that my husband actually really needs to step in and do and maintain and manage, because like that is his son and it's not necessarily my place as the stepmother. And then like also how do I make sure that there's a true blending, right? So we used to have these weird encounters where we would go places and everybody like, oh, that's your mom, and we would both look at each other awkward, like, yes, no, like, you know. And I had to have that conversation, like, how do you want people to define us? Like, how do you want to define this relationship when we're out in public? Like, how do you want me to address or not address people when they make the assumption that like you're my child or not, you know? And so it's been like a process of having a lot of conversations with myself, conversations with my husband, and also conversations with my son to like make sure we're all on the same page, that we're navigating these relationships as best we can and sort of unpacking emotions that come up when, you know, he's, you know, like anyone, like he would love for it to be his mom and his dad, like that completes a picture for him, but that's not the case. And so how do we make space for everybody to still feel like they're a part of the work? So a lot of personal work, a lot of like relational work with my husband and with my son. And then, yeah, I mean, I have a support group. I have other mom friends that like I turn to and I'm like, how do you manage this? Because, you know, I don't know, you know. And then also, you know, we have used family counseling and therapy just to help us figure out how do we like navigate and manage relationships. It's helpful to have someone with an outside perspective kind of come in and help you see where you are, you know, maybe contributing to issues or, you know, giving you a different set of tools to help you navigate.
That's so good. And I just appreciate your transparency with that, because, you know, oftentimes it can easily be pointed or directed to like it's drama because of the other person. But like you said, I love when you said you're trying to make space so that everyone feels like they're a part of making it work. And I love that. Someone said they could totally understand where you're coming from. And Michi said, my son calls his bonus mom, mom. It gave me great comfort as a mother knowing he felt that type of genuine love. I love that. And I just love that you are so honest about your journey and because I know there's some other, you know, bonus moms, stepmoms on here who are feeling like, you know, I can do this. And some days they're probably feeling like this is a J. I don't know.
One of us is leaving.
Yeah. Because it's truly
gonna make it out alive.
Yeah. Even when you talked about going out in public, I didn't even think about that. Like when someone's like, oh, is that your mom? It's like that awkward. And I hate awkward moments. You have that awkward moment. You're like, what do you say? So the fact that you were open to having that conversation and you all figuring out, and again, I'm sure it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
but just knowing that you did the self work and all of you all did like the group work.
Yeah, and I think also just remembering, you know, like kids don't necessarily choose the circumstances, right? So like they're not necessarily privy to everything that happened in your relationship with your spouse or your spouse, significant other's relationship with their parent. And so it can be confusing. Like I remember after my husband and I got married, and mind you, my husband and I had been together this past August was 12 years. So we met 12 years ago. Long distance, you know, and I took it slow because again, there's like a whole other person involved, and it's like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know. Can I handle this? Like, can I be selfless enough to sit in this space? And some days I'm like really great at it, and other days, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not necessarily proud of myself. And like, how do I make amends? You know, like I think we talk about that. I'm a former educator, forever educator, so you know, we talk about how you repair things in relationships with kids, and kids need to see us as adults like owning up for when we make mistakes. And even if I'm not his biological mom, like I still want to make sure that I am being a positive role model for him. That, you know, if he is going to go out there, I truly believe, you know, the first relationship that kids see is their parents' relationship. And sometimes they emulate that for better or for worse. That, like, I'm trying to make sure that I'm showing him that, like, even though his mom and his dad are not together, like, he is still loved, he's still affirmed, there's still a space for him. And when I mess up, because I do, I'm hot-headed, you know, this teenage space is really something. But, like, when I mess up, I try to make sure that I show him that, like, I made a mistake. This is the part that I own in this. Like, let's have a conversation about that, so that he's also developing those skills himself, but that he also knows that, like, it's okay to say I messed up, and, like, I'm going to try to do better.
Yes. I love that. That's beautiful. As you were talking, the sound changed just slightly, almost like I don't know, like they took the bass out of it, or not the bass, but almost like an echo kind of, but not an echo, just like in a, what's it called? Like a more open space. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if the others heard it.
Does it still sound like that?
A little bit. It's like you went further into an open room. We can still hear you, but it just sounds like you went further into a bigger room almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything. I was like, I don't know what happened. Somebody said owning it opens up to a deeper bond with the children, develops a bond of trust. That's absolutely true. Like, and I can only imagine, especially like you said, with teenagers, I mean, they're all over the place. So being able to build that and to build that trust is so important. For the stepmoms out there who may be on the journey or in a season that they feel that you have now conquered, like, what type of encouragement would you give to them in terms of this journey as a step/bonus mom?
Yeah, it's a journey, and I think there's a lot of pressure to blend. You know, I think when we see these images, like, there's a lot of pressure on both sides. It's like you have the narrative of, like, the evil stepmom who's, you know, just mean and miserly and whatever with the child. And then you have, like, the Brady Bunch, where it seems like it's so effortless and everybody just gets along. And so I just would say, you know, like, it's like any relationship. You have ebbs and flows. There are ups and downs. There are times where it's like, I don't know, that it's like times where it's like, man, this is amazing that we've been able to grow here. So I just say, you know, I think it's so important to give yourself grace, to extend grace to yourself. Like, there isn't a manual for this, you know, like, I think when I had my son, it was eye-opening as well, because it's like, yeah, I don't, you know, everybody's just kind of figuring it out, you know, like, phasing it out. Like, we don't really know what the right way to do any one thing is, and there's so much noise around you, around do it this way, do it that way, this is right, or, you know, there's a lot of, like, bad mom, bad stepmom type energy that's out there. And so I just say, like, every day show up and try to be the best person that you can be, and treat it like any other relationship. Like, I'm growing with a child, and my role here is to be, you know, sometimes I have to remind myself, my role here is to be a support for my husband. Like, it's not necessarily my role to be my son's mom, because he has a mom, and I need to make sure that I'm not encroaching on that or making him feel like I'm trying to take over the role of his mom, because that can lead to resentment also, you know. So it's like figuring out, I think it takes a lot of communication with your spouse around what are the contours and the expectations that you have. And for those who, you know, the other parent, the biological parent is involved, like actively involved, I think also, you know, trying to build an amicable relationship. You know, in my experience, that's not necessarily the case. And so, you know, I get some of the other downside, because sometimes, you know, she says things about me that are nice, that I would never say, you know, and I have to remind myself that, like, I have to ultimately be the bigger person, because my son lives with us, like, he's with us on a day-to-day basis, and I have to understand that, like, some of that energy isn't about me or doing something right or wrong, and that it's hard and confusing for children who are kind of in the middle, especially if the relationship is contentious, to figure out how to navigate both. You know, like I have an allegiance to my mom because that's my mom, but like you're also the person who's here, who's doing these things. And so sometimes it's like stepping back and like, you know, getting your glass of wine, hanging out with your friends, doing other things to like, you know, create, you know, boundaries for yourself. I think it's like having boundaries. You don't want to be all walked over. You don't want to be the strict disciplinarian necessarily. And so I think, again, having those conversations with your significant other about what the expectations are, what things really matter to you, so that you can make sure that he or she is backing you up in those things. And then, you know, trying as much as you can to leave bad situations or bad instances in that day and starting fresh the next day, because we're all growing in this process.
Yes, and that's it. And I know someone, hey, Tabby girl, someone mentioned it's definitely a hard balance, but I think there's encouragement knowing that like you're going to have your peaks and valleys. And like you said, there's no manual to it, but just knowing and seeing someone like you who's doing it and making it work, and but still acknowledging like, hey, it's not always easy and every day is different. And just owning that and like releasing that control and setting those boundaries is just really important. So hopefully hopefully that provides some encouragement to someone on here that's maybe dealing in that season or going through that season, and they don't see it getting better, but they want it to get better. So
yeah, yeah, it takes time. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
Mm-hmm. Just like marriage.
Yeah.
So switching gears now, because you are a mom boss, as you like to call it. And I love that. Let me tell y'all, in 2016, Nkoyo left a 6-figure job and started the Effiong firm without any clients, no money, and with a bunch of student loans. And considering the fact my husband went to law school, I know all about those loans.
Yeah.
So I love that you said, you made a statement. You said you were tired of leasing your time and talent to organizations that weren't committed to your success. Woo, that was a word right there. What was the journey like for you getting to that place and having that realization that like, you know what, I can branch out on my own. I'm going to do my own thing. Like, how was that journey for you?
Yeah.
What pushed you?
Yeah. So I think it's a series of different events. Law is my second career, so I started out as an educator. I feel like when I was in that position, I had a lot of opportunity for growth, a lot of autonomy, a lot of experiences that when I went into the traditional practice of law at a big law firm, it's very much like, oh, you're a first-year associate, here's like all the first-year tasks, and like you just do these things, and like then when you're a second year, we'll do X, Y, and Z. So I was privy to a lot of information because I'm big about building relationships. I think you can learn from anyone. So I had a lot of friends in different areas of the firm, not necessarily all lawyers, who were kind of like giving me the 411 on how the practice of law, like the business side of law, worked. And so I was like, this doesn't make sense as like a business model. Like it's not really set up for everybody to be successful at the end of the day. And the amount of hours that I have to work to meet my requirement for like billing actually means that I'm working like, you know, like $15, $20 an hour. So I'm like, there are a lot of other things that I could do that would be more fulfilling than that. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just this firm. And I went to another firm working in their education practice. And the whole time I was there, I felt the misalignment. I felt very much like I wanted to be providing support for parents and students more so than like in an institution in that way. And if I was representing an institution, like I had very strong thoughts about like how I would provide legal services. And I had a couple of crazy encounters with my superiors, and I was kind of like, yeah, we're not on the same board. We're not, this ship isn't going in the same direction. And so I said, well, you know, like, let me just see what I can do. And I just decided that I was going to bet on myself. Like, I taught myself a lot of the law, because people who've gone to law school might, you know, tell you like law school and like the actual practice of law are like two completely different things. So I was just like, well, I can't do worse than what I've got going on here. So I took a leap of faith. I think I was a little naive because it was literally 8 months before I was getting married. And I was just kind of like, yeah, so babe, like, I'm just going to start my own firm. And like, we'll just see how that goes. So there were definitely promptings though. I feel like, the Lord was kind of pushing me in a direction that like where I was definitely wasn't where I needed to be. And so I had a friend who told me one time early on that the things that I wanted to do in the world didn't exist yet. And if they were going to exist, that I needed to be the one to do it. And so I really leaned into that. And here I am.
That was a word right there. The things that you wanted to do didn't exist yet. Wow. And now look at you. Like, I mean, it was clearly faith. And I just love when you said you felt the misalignment, because I feel like sometimes we can feel that misalignment and we feel and we know that like God has called us to do something different. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're not able to necessarily make that leap. And sometimes you just have to make that leap because like it's not going to sit right in your spirit, and you know that God has called you to do something else. So I love that that was a leap of faith. Somebody said you went all the way. You straight started on faith. Yes, Angela. She said you straight started on faith. Like, because you didn't have anything. You had every reason not to, but you still chose to do it in spite of. So I don't know what else you call it except for faith. But
yeah,
that's why you're a boss mom. As a business wife, mother, and a business owner, what are some practical things that you're doing to ensure that you practice self-care for yourself and have that me time?
Yeah, so it's so funny. I invest in my learning. Like I said, I'm a lifelong learner. So I have a business coach because I don't know everything. So, that was one thing I think has been a lot of evolution. Because I feel sometimes, especially as Black women, we try to do everything in our own strength by ourselves and don't ask for help. And so I was like, yeah, I can sit and continue to just like work really hard to get, oh, sorry, I'm like reading the comments.
At me, she's on here, EBC.
Right, I was like, so I was like, I could continue to just work really hard and just work and work and work, but that it didn't work out because I had a baby, and anyone who has a small child knows that like, your life is, you can't just operate differently. I was telling my mom the other day, like, I need to get sleep because I have a tight toddler and he's very much figuring out and testing his boundaries. And so I'm like, I'm not trying to show up and be like, janking up my kid doing just regular stuff because I'm tired. So it was a real eye-opening experience that like, I have got to figure out how to do more strategically. So I am one who spends time at the beginning of the week setting my priorities for the week. I'm a strategic planner, so I'm a backwards planner. What do I want to achieve by the end of the year? What are the 3 big things that have to happen each quarter for me to get there? What are those things then? What does that mean on a weekly basis? And I'm working really hard to like forget the rest and really just focus on what are my biggest priorities so that I can show up as a mom, a wife, a daughter, a woman unto myself, because all those things are really important to me. So it is being really intentional about my time, how I'm spending it, saying no, which sometimes is really hard, but the more you do it, the easier it starts to get, and recognizing that sometimes when I say no, it's because I'm saying yes to something that's more aligned to what I want to do or need to do to show up the way I want to show up for my clients, for my husband, for my family, for my friends, for myself. And so being intentional, prioritizing. And even this quarter, I've been like experimenting with work, having a 4-day work week. Like, let me go hard Monday through Thursday. My husband is off on Fridays. He sometimes has to work on the weekend. So I'm like, okay, that's a perfect incentive for me to be off on Friday. So I have time to spend with other people that I care about as well.
Yeah, because you're the boss. So you can take off whenever you want to.
You would think, it's funny because sometimes I'm like, oh, I gotta be here for my clients. But I'm like, again, it's like setting boundaries. And I say, you know, I wish I had been better about that even when I was working for someone else. Because it's very easy to just be like, oh, okay, well, Nkoyo's working, we're just going to keep giving her stuff and she'll just keep doing it because, you know, she's not saying no. When lo and behold, all your other friends, colleagues are like, oh, you know, well, I am working on this and this, you know, do you think, like, you know, so everybody else is saying no and you're the only one saying yes, and now you're overworked and don't have access to your own self, your mind, you know, like you can't show up the way that you want to. So
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned being intentional, prioritizing. It's like, does it really need to get done today or can this wait? As well as saying no. That saying no was really hard for me. It took me some years to get to saying
yeah,
no. I'm getting much better. But I always say, I'm like, sometimes saying no to everyone else means a yes to yourself. So it's like sometimes you have to say no because I need to make sure I say yes to myself. Because like you said earlier, sometimes we can, especially as Black women, we can put ourselves last. And it's like, if we're not together, then everything else is gonna be off.
it's true.
I'm
It's
gonna
so
be
true.
a grumpy wife. I'm gonna be a terrible mom and snapping at my kids. But it's like, if I can get myself together and find that place of zen and calm, then I can, you know, I can direct my energy in a more positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And
um,
recognizing too that, you know, like we're not a limitless tank. Like you actually need to stop. You need to refresh. I read this book, One Thing, and they talked about like discipline, right? So like you can be really good at making like great decisions in the morning, but then like by the end of the day, you start making like less great decisions. And that's because, you know, discipline, like all of that stuff, it's not limitless. Like there is a limit. And so I know I work better in the morning when I'm being really good to myself. I make sure I go to bed on time so I can get up in the morning because that's when I function best, right? Otherwise, you know, I can stay up late and that same task that I spent like 2 hours doing late at night, I would have gotten done in 30 minutes in the morning if I would just tell myself it's okay to go to bed. It's okay to rest. My mind needs it. My body needs it. Resting is doing something.
Resting is doing something. Yes, that's so good. We all need to hear that. That's a beauty. I might add that to my morning mantra. Like, and 2020 has clearly taught us that resting is doing something because you got to rejuvenate. You got to get that energy back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I know that part of your law firm's mission is to help women in business as well as mothers. And I know right now it's back to school season. So what are some of the major things that you want parents to know as it relates to their rights as well as like the rights of the children, especially during this COVID? Because
Yeah.
I know you have a COVID covered workshop you have coming up that I definitely want you to tell the people about. But what's some things they can expect from that, especially those who want to sign up or those who just need to get more information about their rights as parents, as well as, you know, and even as a professional entrepreneur, but especially during this back to school season time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, like Shonda mentioned, I run an education law firm. We represent parents and students, predominantly parents and students with special needs, but also students who are facing long-term suspension or expulsion. We truly believe at my firm that the best place for a child is in the school. That's where they're going to be learning the things that we want them to be learning. So we really try to make sure that we're keeping kids in school, especially because of the disproportionality that we see with Black and brown students being more likely to be punished through exclusionary discipline. So being pushed out through these long-term suspensions or expulsions that have a huge impact on their development as human beings and also just their academic ability to perform and do what they need to do to be able to go on to the next level. We also see a really frightening intersection with children of color who also have special needs. So at the intersection of race and ability, we're definitely seeing those kids getting pushed out more often than not, being secluded, being taught in classrooms where there's, you know, the expectation is really low for them, and just being overrepresented in special education in certain categories like emotional behavior disorder, and underrepresented in other categories like autism spectrum disorder, because we assume that, you know, autism is something that like only apparently affects like white males. But like if you're a Black boy who has any type of social skills deficiency, or I don't even say deficiency, just you have different social skills, understanding, etc., you need additional support, we assume that it's a behavior disorder and we punish it. So if you are a parent right now in this season, there are a couple of things that I think apply to everyone, whether you have a child with special needs or in the general education setting. One is like making sure, you have the right to review your records. So you can go and make sure that what is in your child's record is actually accurate. And if it's not, then you can request that those things that are inaccurate be fixed and replaced. You have right to notice. So for example, if your child is potentially going to be suspended or expelled, so suspension, anything over 10 days, you have a due process right, a federal right to have notice and a hearing. You have an opportunity to be heard. So there's usually a student tribunal. So I think it's really important to make sure that you're getting that information as well. You have rights, you have options in terms of how you want your child to be educated. So there's a big case, that says that parents have the right to direct the upbringing of their children. And it's, it's changed a little bit over different cases, but at least as it relates to education, it allows you to make the decision of whether you're going to educate your child in a public school or a private school or homeschool. I know a lot of parents have been thinking about homeschooling in this season, feeling like what's going on in our traditional school setting has not been working for their children. And so you absolutely have the right to homeschool your child. There's a process that you go through for that, but it is something that is absolutely available. There are a lot of different homeschooling co-ops that you can join and work with other parents to provide the type of education that you feel like your child needs. So that's something that is important to know. Parents, you have a right to privacy. You can protect your children in the confidentiality of your child's records. So everybody at the school and everybody else's moms and dads shouldn't know about your child's whole discipline record or academics, etc. Like you have privacy rights in that. And so schools need to be careful about what they're sharing. You can also opt out from certain disclosures of information if you don't want that provided, and that notice should be provided to you at the beginning of the year. One of the other big things I'll say that applies to all parents is if you are in a Title I school, so if you're in a school that is designated a Title I, you have the right to know whether that school is on like the needs improvement list. And if so, you may have an option to be able to transfer your child to another school that is not, quote, failing or under needs improvement or anything of that sort. So you have certain rights there just as in the general education setting. One other thing is if you feel like your child is struggling, it's taking them a little bit longer to grasp concepts than others. Maybe they're getting in trouble a lot of discipline issues. You can request an evaluation and have your child actually evaluated to determine whether he or she is eligible for services through special education. And I know there's a lot of stigma about that. And I feel like one of the things that I find really important about the work that I do is talking to communities of color about that stigma. And I know that a lot of times when we get labeled, it's really detrimental to us. But if you have a child that has needs, we have federal laws that protect them, that provide you as a parent with a whole host of rights to make sure that your child is getting a free, appropriate public education in his or her least restrictive environment. And I will tell you candidly, like in certain communities, parents are trying to get their kids on a 504 plan or an IEP because it comes with a whole host of rights. It comes with a whole bunch of services if they're eligible to make sure that they are accessing the general education curriculum. It's something that may be able to benefit them when they go on to higher education. And so I always say, there are communities that are chomping at the bit to try to get their kids a 504 plan or an IEP plan because the federal rights, and the federal rights are actually stronger than your rights that you have just as a general education student. And so if your child needs that support, I think it's so important to, request an evaluation, have the child evaluated and determine whether he or she is eligible for some of those services so that you can make sure that they're getting the support that they need. Those services can be like additional reading support. If you have a child who maybe is dyslexic, you may be able to get some of the top line tutoring and support to make sure that they're able to read on grade level. If there are some different behavioral challenges, you may be able to get different counseling and therapy to help them to be able to make better decisions in social settings, et cetera. There's just a whole host of resources that are available there. So I just like to make sure that parents know that, so that you're making an informed decision and not just being like, oh, no, I want my kid in special education. Like, one,
Right.
it's confidential. Only the people who need to know that. And two, it really can provide your child with a whole bunch of services that will allow them to access the general education and even graduate with a general education diploma, go on and do great things. And so if that support is needed, I think it's so important to actually access that and help your child get the best education that he or she can.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for helping to remove that stigma too, because like you said, it's a lot of times, you know, there's the shame behind it or just feeling some type of way, but it's like you're only hindering the help and the attention that your child could be getting, but if we just like admit that maybe there's something going on and maybe they just needed a little extra assistance with in terms of how they learn and stuff. So I'm so glad you explained that. Tell people how they can get registered for your COVID covered workshop.
Yeah, so COVID Cover is happening next week, and you can go on my IG at the Effiong.com, or at not .com, but the website, it's on there as well. And it's in the link in my bio. It's COVID Covered. You register, join me. We're actually going to spend like 60 minutes talking about, especially if you have a child with special needs or someone who you think maybe needs those services, how you can get those services, access to the support you need in this season during this pandemic. So I know some parents are really concerned because everybody's gone virtual, and it's like, how are you supposed to, you know, my child has a paraprofessional that helps him move from one class to another class, or they have, you know, speech therapy or occupational therapy or any other of these services. How am I making sure that they're going to get those? How is this not going to just fall on me, where I'm actually going to walk you through what your rights are as a parent during this time, how to make sure that your distance learning plan is actually set up to benefit your child in this space, and also some just different techniques and tricks around how to sort of manage living, learning, and working all in the same space. Like, I have a son. Mm-hmm. He's on the kitchen table. I have an office. Like, we're all trying to figure this out. And so I think there are definitely some strategies that you can apply that would be beneficial and help make remote learning, this whole experience, less stressful for all of us, so that we can all show up and learn as much as we can during this time. And I will say also with that, you know, like, my encouragement to any parent who is virtual learning right now is like, your kids will learn. They're resilient. Yes. They will learn a lot of skills that are important for life right now. So I know there's a lot of like tension and stress about like whether there's going to be all this learning loss, and, you know, candidly, some of these standards are like so random. Like, I don't know why, you know, like, exactly, why they're even there in the first place. But I truly believe that our children are covered, and that they are going to learn. They're going to be resilient. And there's going to be ways to provide them with additional support if they need that, even in this season.
That's good. Like Jackie said earlier, she said, great info. Wow. And I know a lot of, because I know there's a lot of wives and mothers, whether you're single or married, on here who have children. Like you said, there's a lot of, you know, pandemonium and stress and overwhelming feelings around being back to school. And so you being able to, you know, impart so much wisdom and so much knowledge. I'm like, you are just a wealth of knowledge. Like, you just better black girl magic. Yes. Like, because it's so necessary. So I'm so glad we were able to like use this platform to share that as well. Someone who's that? Amir said, I'm hugging you through life. I think you are giving so much life and hope to so many families. It's so important to know you're not walking this alone. Absolutely.
You're not. It takes a village, like, it really does. And we're big at my firm about building community and giving space for parents to come, vent, get strategies, get support, etc. Like, I have a membership, and like, that's what we have there. We're just trying to make sure that you're not walking this alone, because it can be very overwhelming trying to manage everything on top of, you know, like a pandemic, and then, you know, like your kids have needs, whether they learn or behave differently or not, like they all have needs. And so figuring out how we just make this process less painful for each other as we go through it.
Yes, I love that. And that's what you're here for. Listen, y'all better reach out because she's here. So we have about roughly 10 minutes left. I want to do our fun rapid fire round as
Yeah,
we do each week. Yay!
I'm excited for this. And nervous.
Okay. Yes, don't be nervous. I didn't do too bad this time. Okay. First question. Who's usually on diaper duty at night? You or your husband?
Me.
Mm, that's
That man can sleep through anything.
Yep. It'll be interesting when we have children because I can sleep through anything. Toilet paper, and make sure, ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuning in, feel free to respond in the comments as well. Toilet paper, over or under?
Over.
Period. It's like, why do you want to go under?
Why would you do that? Like, it doesn't.
Why? Exactly. Nigerian meal, I feel like I know this answer. Nigerian meal prepared at home or takeout?
Well, since my dad is really good, so at home.
Ooh.
If he wasn't here, we would be over at Ike's Cafe trying to get there.
Yes, you are spoiled right now. Let me tell you, I'm so jealous.
I am. I don't know what I'm going to do when they move out. I'm
Listen.
trying to move with them.
So jealous. Who takes longer to get ready? You or him?
Ooh. So my husband's on this like whole routine right now, and I'm like, what are you doing in there? But he would say me. I would say it's probably close right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably tied.
Yes. Not who. Hair scarf on or off during sex?
Ooh. You got to get through this hair. Off.
Okay. Tebby said him. I don't know if I believe you, Tebby.
I know. I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know
She's
if I
gonna be
believe
like,
that,
why are you
Tebby.
calling me out? And congratulations to Tebby on her new baby. Yay.
Yes.
Are you cool with being in the bathroom with each other or not?
No.
Okay. Goals. Okay. I'll just say that. Beach vacation in the islands or mountain cabin getaway in Utah?
Islands.
Okay. For those of y'all who don't know, Nkoyo's hometown or home state is Utah.
It is. Born and raised.
Post quarantine, where would you want to go first? Jamaica or Nigeria?
Ooh. Jamaica.
I won't tell your family.
Some of them might be out here. Don't tell them.
Right. It's our little secret. Do you prefer quiet time outside or inside a room? Because I know you love your quiet time.
Inside.
Nice.
The grill, yes. Oh my
Yes.
God. My husband took me to the grill the first time we went to Jamaica, and I was like, I don't think I need to go back to the States.
That's where we went. It felt like home. It was like, these are my people. My people. It did rain a lot, so I still need to go back. I definitely want to go to Montego Bay, but the grill was definitely beautiful, but it just rained a little. It was like cloudy. I needed a little more sun so I could get more shine.
Yeah, you gotta go back. You gotta go back.
Yes, definitely going back. Okay, last one. Would you rather option A, argue all the time but have great makeup sex, or B, never argue and have mediocre sex?
Gosh. So funny. My husband and I were having a conversation about this. Like, I mean, I'm for great sex.
So you would rather argue all the time. Option A, argue all the time.
That's terrible. I'm gonna prioritize the sex there. Option A.
It's not terrible. Listen, this is a no judgment zone. Listen, you have been incredible tonight. You have imparted so much wisdom, and I hope that parents feel even more empowered, and moms, and I know even those who are going to watch the replay who weren't able to tune in, like, you have such a wealth of knowledge and just such an inspiration, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for you. Before we wrap up, we
It's
definitely
mutual.
want to,
I said
oh,
the
you're so
feeling is
sweet.
mutual. Mutual. I
Somebody said these
love what you're doing
questions.
on your platform. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you all who tune in, whether this is your first time or you tune in every week. Some of y'all are my day ones. I so appreciate it. Like I said, I want to create this platform for us just to come and just be real, be honest, be transparent, and just share and grow from each other's experiences. With that said, first, tell everyone where they can follow you, and then and what you want to toast to tonight.
Oh, yeah. So you can follow me at the Effiong Firm, or you can follow me at that Edlaw Lady, whichever one is easier for you to find. You can find me, and then you can, connect to the other one. But I am at the Effiong Firm, and yeah. Tonight I am toasting to people getting out and voting for the future that we really want.
Mm.
Get out and vote. Vote. Vote.
That is a good one. I agree with that toast. Like, toast to vote. Ladies in the comments, get your little wines together. Yes, toast to vote. That's gonna be the new hashtag, toast to vote, because listen, things have got to change, okay? Got to change.
And the only way it changes is by voting. Like, sitting at home is not doing nothing.
Kamala's not, she hasn't had a perfect pass, but guess what? None of us have. And I'm just saying, you can't get any worse than 45. Like, what has he not done to, like,
thank you.
She'd rather keep listen, don't even get me
started. I know. I know.
But listen, but yes, but thank you all so much for tuning in. If again, we are here every week, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And bring your wine, share, tell a friend, tag, share a video, share an image, and the replay is always available for you. So this replay, as soon as we hang up from here, the replay will be available on my IGTV, so you can catch it. And even for your old school friends who may be on Facebook and don't have Instagram, guess what? They can watch it too. All they need is the link. So tell a friend. Make sure you get armed, especially as it relates to, get armed with knowledge. Let me preface that. To follow Nkoyo and her pages, because they're so critical and so important. And she provides a wealth of knowledge, especially for working moms and moms with children, as well as professional women of color. So she's definitely one to follow, definitely one to know. I appreciate all you all. I am Shonda White, signing off for tonight. Thank you, Nkoyo. I appreciate you. And y'all have a wonderful, wonderful week.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.